Hello and welcome to this NDTV special on the big challenges that lie ahead for the new Modi government as it attempts to live up to the high expectations set during the campaign. This on a day when Narendra Modi grappled with the more immediate matter of trying to put together his team, meeting key leaders who are believed to be those with whom he has less than a comfortable relationship. On the screen next to you, you can see Narendra Modi meeting L.K. Advani. That was an important meeting meant to decide what role Mr. Advani will play. Will he indeed, as speculation suggests, be the speaker of the new parliament? Cars also driving in of Narendra Modi into the home of Dr. Murli Manohar Joshi, another leader who, with whom he is meant to try and smooth any ruffled feathers. Also, other key leaders you can see on your screen held meetings like Rajnath Singh, Arun Jaitley and Amit Shah, as they also took part in the process of consultation before the formation of the government. And also Sushma Swaraj met senior leaders of the RSS who have also played a very important role in the process of forming the government. So, will the Modi sarkaar now, as it takes shape, be able, as I said, to meet the challenges that lie ahead of it, particularly, as they have said relentlessly through the campaign, an economy they claim has been left damaged by the UPA. And one of the first big challenges, of course, is to do with the question of price rise. And let me first introduce my panel before I put that question to Chandan Mitra of the BJP, who joins me on the show. Chandan Mitra, thanks so much for being with us. Also on the panel tonight, we have Abhishek Manu Singhvi, senior leader of the Congress, Mohan Das Pai, who's a well-known voice representing corporate India on the show tonight. Also Aruna Roy, leading activist and a member of the National Advisory Council of the previous government. Joining me as well is S. Chandrasekhar, who's an associate professor at the IGDRI, the Indira Gandhi Research and Development Institute in Mumbai, who will be hopefully a non-partisan voice of the economy on the show. So he joins me as well on the show tonight. Let me ask you, Chandan Mitra, straight up, because high prices were a huge part of this election campaign and in some ways played a role in ensuring high levels of unpopularity against the UPA and subsequently perhaps to your advantage as well. How do you hope to actually check that? Because remember that in that high inflation figure, the food inflation is really what's driving it. What concrete way do you think you can check it?
Well, Vasu, I am no economist or policy activist in this regard, but I can only tell you that in several BJP ruled states, what has been very successful is a highly coordinated and very well implemented public distribution system. Take the example of Chhattisgarh. In Chhattisgarh, we have worked out such a well-planned public distribution system that people in every corner of that very remote and state with a lot of forests and mines, remote areas. Yeah.
I take your point about the public distribution system, but do remember that what is driving food inflation right now is not food grain, which is what is supplied through the PDS. It's fruits, it's vegetables, it's dairy products, it's proteins like meat and dals. These are the things which are driving it. And one of the factors that people say underlies this is that there's been a greater spending power because of these entitlement schemes, these massive entitled schemes of the UPA government like Narega and so on. That's put more money in the hands of the Aam Aadmi, and that's why there's a greater demand which is not matched by the supply, and that's what is driving food prices up. So one of the things that you might have to look at is whether you want to continue with these entitlement schemes like Narega and so on.
No, see, that is not the entire story. This is like that argument that prices are going up because people are eating more. There's a food grain crisis because people are eating more. Of course, people will eat more. They have a right to eat more. They have a right to eat good food.
But then how will you control it?
Things will be controlled. I mean, I don't think, you are going to dismantle Manrega or this food security scheme overnight. In fact, BJP governments introduced the food security scheme much before the Congress thought about doing that. So I don't have any worries on that score. The supply has to be improved. The supply-demand mismatch will have to be gradually reduced.
Okay.
And these things can't happen overnight. You see, it's not a socialist economy that tomorrow you say that, from tomorrow dal will sell at 1 rupee a kg. You can't do these kind of Tughlakian arrangements. But if there's a vision, if there's planning, it can be achieved.
Okay, that's an honest admission that it can't be done overnight. You cannot centrally control prices anymore, nor can you, as you just said, scrap schemes like Narega and of course the PDS system, or at least even try and curtail them. Mohandas Pai, then does that in some ways disappoint you as somebody who was hoping that this government will actually see a trimming of subsidies and a trimming of these entitlement schemes which you and other members of the corporate community have been very critical of?
Well, I think Vasu, the problem is not about the subsidies as much as the delivery of the subsidies. For example, in my state of Karnataka, yes, out of 1.2 crore families, 95 lakh families have the BPL ration cards. And in the neighboring state of Andhra Pradesh, I am told there are more cards than families. So obviously the leakage is immense, and I think the leakage is what is hurting. But let me talk about the priorities which I think the government should have, because the big priority is inflation and jobs, and I would put jobs first.
I want to come to jobs.
Investments are required.
Mohandas Pai, can I just pause there? I'm coming to jobs in a second. I'm talking right now.
Okay, then I'll talk about inflation. Okay.
Inflation, yeah.
Okay, I'll talk about inflation. Now, if you look at onion prices and vegetable prices, especially onion, you will notice that onions prices spiked up at regular intervals, and that is because of a cartel working in Nasik, controlled by a few politicians and a few wholesalers. So every few months there is a cartel, they corner the market, drive the price up, maybe make 2,000 or 3,000 crores in cash and then bring it down. So this cartel has to be broken, and for the cartel to be broken, the APMC APMC reforms have to take place, where farmers have the right to sell anywhere. And second, you need to streamline the supply chain. The supply chain is totally broken in many parts of the country because there are lorry unions and everything else who conspire to do this.
But can the BJP,
but if we're able to make sure...
Is this something that is going to be possible? Abhishek Singhvi, the argument is that these are all the liabilities which the NDA, the new NDA government has inherited by you, from you. A huge subsidy bill, entitlement schemes which are riddled with corruption, cartels that ensure that prices remain high.
Srinivasan, I just want to make a few quick points. First of all, I genuinely wish them well, and I don't want to sound churlish at this stage, because if they do, even 50% of the magic which Mr. Modi has promised and the dreams he has sold, it will be great for India. But the problem with real life is that magical wands don't exist, and being iconoclastic when you're in the opposition is very different from having to deliver within time-bound schedules when you're in power. Having said that, let's look at one by one. First of all, Mr. Modi has, over the last 9 months, in this spectacular victory which he has scripted, been very short on details in his speeches. In the rallies, he can taunt and shoot and scoot, but the specifics have been missing. Now, if you look at the specifics, there are serious questions, and you put some of them. Are they prepared to take upfront the political consequences of rolling back some of the basic showcase schemes we have started? Whether it be Manrega or more particularly the right to food security, for example.
I think Chandan Mitra's answer that saying they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that.
I'm saying something else. Obviously, I'm saying this that very well, that I mean, there's no question of rollback in that sense, but I'm saying if there is a trimming or a curtailing by indirect means, we are there to oppose it. I can say to you here right up front, despite being the most constructive opposition, we are going to oppose it tooth and nail.
We won't give you the chance.
However, the moment you talk about leakages, the moment you talk about leakages, we are one with the government. Any good scheme which prevents or plugs leakages, yes, by all means, let us share with us and we will support you in that. Because obviously leakages is something which you improve on progressively.
No, but that's, as far as inflation is concerned. No, but that's something which, Abhishek, you were not able to control despite being in power for 10 years.
No,
you
that's
couldn't
wrong.
Control the leakages. And in fact, it's true that some of the most efficient PDS systems are in non-Congress run states. But I want to come to Aruna Roy.
Only one sentence, Srinivas. One sentence. The leakages when Manrega started were high and deplorable. They decreased each year, and the internal party audits and the government audits we did, today they are at much better levels, although there is scope for improvement.
All right, okay. Can I just bring
documented reports? One minor point. I know, not minor point, but just a minor intervention. That 30 years ago, Rajiv Gandhi said that of every 1 rupee sent out of Delhi, only 15 paisa reached the beneficiaries. And 30 years later, and after being in power for 10 continuous years,
yes,
I am sorry to say, Mr. Singhvi, you have not been able to plug any of those leakages, and now you are offering cooperation to us to do that.
Okay, can I just bring...
That's an admission of total failure, but anyway, I welcome your offer,
and we will try to help. We need to allow others to speak. Gentlemen, let's allow others to speak. Aruna Roy, as somebody who was part of the NAC, was instrumental in crafting some of these entitlement schemes, are you reassured to hear that the new dispensation has no intention of dismantling them?
See, actually, if you look at these entitlements, that's a reparation for the lack of attention to the poorest in this country for years. Many governments have come and gone, and none of them have really addressed the issue of hunger, the issue of poverty, the issue of employment of the poorest in this country. The reaction to the entitlements and the rights-based schemes has arisen from a fear of poor people and ordinary citizens getting empowered. Because along with these entitlements, they have been given the right to transparency and accountability. And in fact, most of the pilferage that is now exposed is exposed because of them. So inflation to all of us is not because of food, not because of employment, but it's also because of the enormous salaries that every pay commission gives to government servants.
No, but
it's
also
because of boarding that takes place and distribution.
But here Aruna Chandan is saying that they are going to continue. But they're saying they're going to continue with these schemes.
No, I'm just coming to it. So if there's real purpose and intent of the new government to deal with it, then they'll have to look over their shoulder to see why they did not pass the grievance redress bill in Parliament. It was ready to be passed. Neither the opposition nor the people in power at that time pushed the bill and made it a reality. Because unless you empower people to check the pilferage, no government, no institution you set up, and no amount of empowering all the vigilance institutions is going to help.
Okay,
business today is, if you really want to check inflation, you must check corruption, and to check corruption, you have to empower people.
All right, I'm going to put that to Chandan in just a second about the grievance redressal bill. But Chandrasekhar, I want to bring you in to ask you that if, as Chandan Mitra has said, this government is going to continue with these same schemes and ensure that the subsidy bill overall is not touched, then how are you going to control the fiscal deficit?
Okay, just before that, one comment, inflation. The BJP needs to be grateful to Congress for rationalizing diesel prices. They have allowed railway tariffs to actually increase. So BJP needs to be grateful to Congress for some politically tough decisions that the Congress took. And unfortunately, what's going to happen is Congress is not going to reap the benefits of it. Point number 2, BJP needs to articulate what is the strategy beyond onion, potato and garlic. We are talking about milk, we are talking about ladyfinger, the whole range of vegetables. BJP needs to articulate what is the strategy for the entire value chain from the farm to the table. They need to have a very well defined, coherent import and export policy for all horticulture products.
Okay.
The only benefit that BJP will get is that if Narendra Modi promises growth, he will break inflationary expectations. Immediately in the next 6 months, I don't see any huge impact on inflation.
Okay, so you're saying that the potential or the possibility of growth, that sentiment could try and dampen inflation. But last word from you before I move on to the challenge of corruption, Mohandas Pai, which I asked you earlier, but you didn't answer directly, that if these subsidies and if the entitlement schemes continue, then what happens to the fiscal deficit? Then it's absolutely the same. There's no change between a Congress philosophy or a BJP philosophy.
It was the same Narendra scheme.
Mohandas Pai, yes.
No, let me Yeah, now let me tell you this. I think the new government should follow what PC Chidambaram did. PC had benign neglect on the subsidy scheme. Narendra was put at a cap of 30,000 crores for the last 4 years. He didn't increase it. It's only 30,000 crores. They didn't spend the money. Second, as far as food subsidy is concerned, benign neglect has ensured the subsidy doesn't increase. Is that 1 lakh crore this year? It may not increase more because the scheme all over India is dysfunctional. They set up a committee to find out the level of poverty, and I think some reports are the poverty levels of 45%. So benign neglect on these issues for the next 2 or 3 years will stabilize the level of subsidy and not make it
that's
increase.
Interesting.
And that alone will be a good benefit.
Vasu.
That's interesting.
Vasu, I want to say something on this.
One point.
Vasu, may I just get one line?
Okay, Aruna, very quickly, one line. Very quickly, one line. Yes.
I have to
very
respond.
quickly. PC Chidambaram has killed the NREGA at the grassroots level. By his so-called benign neglect, he has really ruined the entitlement of the law. He's put corruption into all bureaucratic and lower political structures.
Okay.
He has allowed mismanagement of the system. So I do not think the continuation of this policy by this present government will be welcomed.
All right, Chandan
by
Mitra,
people who have looked forward to NREGA.
Look,
Chandan Mitra, will you allow benign neglect, or will you proactively back these schemes?
First thing that will have to be done, Vasu, is to completely dismantle an absolutely extra-constitutional, unauthorized organization of busybodies called the National Advisory Council. First, let's dismantle this and get these people out of the way. They have caused enormous damage to the country and come out with all these highfalutin schemes which sound very good in theory.
But you just said that you are going to continue with these schemes.
Has given rise to so much leakage.
No, but you're saying that you're going to continue with these schemes.
No, we are not going to continue with the NAC, and that is half the problem solved. You see, once you render these fellows jobless and forced to visit only TV studios to get their points across and not get 10 Janpaths here or any 7 hours here, I think that is half the problem.
Come on, Chandan.
We will do the rest.
Okay.
Please, Vasu, can I get one line in?
Okay, fair enough. Yes,
I don't individually mean to. I don't individually mean this against Mrs. Roy, but the NAC as a body has to.
Okay, once again, let her respond. Chandan, let her respond. We have to move on. Let her respond. Yes.
Because if you say something like that, I have to respond, Vasu.
Yes, please.
See, the NAC is a very small advisory body which has been made the whipping boy and the red herring of all failures everywhere. I think one should be rational in one's discussions.
Okay.
It was an advisory body and the government accepted or didn't accept what it wanted to do.
Fair enough. Let's try and keep this.
Just look at the history of UPA 2.
All right, let's try and keep
this. Can I just get one sentence in?
No, sorry. We have to move on to our next big challenge, which is of corruption, and again a big election issue, just like high prices. And again, the same question to you, Chandan Mitra, and I also want to welcome on the show Kirit Somaya, who's joining us from Mumbai, newly elected MP, and someone also who's got a keen view on the economy. But I want to put that to you, Chandan Mitra. How will the Modi government, which has made corruption such a strong issue during the campaign, how will you actually be able to contain it? How will we ensure that there are no more CWG scams, 2G scams, coal scams?
No, none of that will happen. I can tell you. They never happened in the Vajpayee regime. They have never happened in our states. There is no question. You see, the fish rots from the head. And that's exactly what happened in the Manmohan Singh regime, that all these ministers together looted lakhs and lakhs of crores of rupees by manipulating the system.
How will you
we are not going to allow any manipulation of the system.
No, but when you say...
I have my colleague Mr. Somaya here.
Yes.
He has been fighting these things. It can be ensured. This is not
no,
an issue.
But Kirit Somaya... Okay.
Never happened.
No, but Kirit Somaya, when you say, Chandan Mitra, and let me put that to Kirit Somaya, when you say it doesn't happen in your states, what would you say about Yediyurappa? What would you say about the fact that there was a minister in the Gujarat government who has been convicted? Babu Bhai Bokharia, Kirit Somaya.
He has been sacked also.
Yes, I think all this argument you also have done during the campaign and prior to election campaign. Now the results are out. What we are today discussing about what the economic scenario and the action plan of Modi government.
Yes, so I want to ask you.
You are talking about
this is an action. I'm asking you, how will the Modi government contain corruption? We're doing a
That's
very
what I'll be
positive,
quoting.
forward-looking focus here.
Yeah. So the first of all, transparency. The second vital important point in this government is that this government is run by its government head. There are no half a dozen remote control. You know what was Congress government was happening? There was the NSE, there was Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, and several other people. They tried to control the government. Automatically the corruption, and there is no question of accountability in this government. Another thing.
Let's get, okay, no, before you move to the next point, let's get Abhishek Singhvi in all fairness to respond to that. Do you believe, Abhishek Singhvi, the BJP's claim that with a sole authority vested in Narendra Modi, political and executive, corruption will be reduced?
I am waiting, Srinivasan, right through the last 6 months of Mr. Modi's daily rallies and today right through the program to hear a single concrete measure as to how this magical wand will be waved and corruption will vanish. I am still waiting. Secondly, I would be the happiest to know if even partially it will be what concrete specific steps will be taken, because I am not here into the selective amnesia of the Yedurappas, the Tehelkas, the Hudco scams or other problems like Bokheria, who was inducted into the cabinet after conviction under a stay order. So leaving that aside, looking at the future as you say, I still like to know concrete measures. What specific concrete thing? Transparency, the given. We passed the RTI. So don't tell us about transparency. Now the question is, with the transparency and the RTI, what are the specific measures you suggest? We passed the Lokpal. Now tell us how you are going to do something concrete.
Why should we tell you what we will do? Why should we tell you in a TV program what we shall do?
Perhaps because you don't know what you will do. Perhaps because you don't know what you will do.
Okay,
why should we tell you?
Chandan, why not tell the people of this country via this medium? Because, I tell you today, one of those who came to call on Mr. Modi at Gujarat Bhavan was Yediyurappa, amongst the many visitors. This raises questions about whether Mr. Yediyurappa, who was first re-inducted into the BJP despite the charges, is now seeking a position in the cabinet. Doesn't this therefore undermine what you've just told us, that there will be zero tolerance on corruption?
There will be. Unlike you, which had 100% tolerance of corruption.
No, I'm saying on Yediyurappa, sir. Chandan Mitra.
No. Yediyurappa, I mean, where have you got this information? You seem to know more about the Modi government than I do.
No, I'm saying he came, I'm not saying he joined.
And Mr. Yediyurappa has not been charged by the court. There's no case against him at present, and he is a mass leader in Karnataka. Why should you, just you've been flogging the Yediyurappa horse for many months, and now you got wiped out in Karnataka also?
Okay, let me put that to Mohandas Pai. Mohandas Pai, where were the main problems? Where in the system was the main aspects of corruption felt by people like yourself and in the corporate sector? And how do you think a Modi government can fix it? Or are you convinced that they can, as they are claiming, fix it?
Well, let me say this. In the UPA government, there were various satrapis. For example, the environment minister was handed by another political party, and you have to pay a bribe to get environment approval. Now we have a single party in power, and hopefully the Prime Minister will make sure that this doesn't happen. When you have different satrapies and the Prime Minister is helpless, they all take bribes and you know what to do, and that's what has happened in the UPA too. Second important thing is, the leadership is very important. If you have a leader who says, I'm not going to tolerate any corrupt activities, and if something happens, I'm going to take action against the ministers, and the leader is strong, and the leader says that he wants to rule for 10 years with a very vigilant press, a very vigilant opposition, and he takes a stand, I think there will be a dramatic reduction in corruption. And
well, I don't know
some transparency
about a very vigorous opposition at the moment because of the numbers in Parliament. But Aruna Roy, you believe?
Yes.
You believe in the promise?
I believe.
You believe in the promise of Narendra Modi that मैं ना खाता हूँ ना किसी और को खाने देता हूँ. This has been his motto in the campaign.
I believe that governments are huge entities, that however good or bad a political leadership may be, the system has its own volition and works on its own basis. So unless there are guaranteed laws and there are guaranteed systems and of both transparency and accountability, and if the Lok Sabha functions properly and passes these laws,
yes,
and the only thing that the political party can do is to insist that when there is corruption unveiled, 30, 40, 50 RTI activists will not be killed, maimed or left to die, that when corruption is exposed, that accountability will take care of it.
Okay.
Today, there are hundreds of thousands of people exposing corruption, but nothing is happening. So it's not only the top level corruption, it's the corruption of daily existence. So unless those laws are passed in Parliament, I really don't think, and systems are put in place.
All right, let me just bring...
And believe me, Basu, there is one more point.
I want to make
just one second. I want to bring Chandrasekhar in here. Aruna, I want to come back to you.
Aruna, let me allow you... One line.
Yes. One line, yes.
You want me to speak?
Yes, go ahead.
I want to say that we are people who are the grassroots, who have Congress and BJP governments in Rajasthan. The level of corruption may go up a little bit and come down a little bit, but the delivery system is always a problem for us.
Okay,
so
let me
just
ask...
to cure the delivery system...
All right, let me bring Chandrasekhar in here. Chandrasekhar, if one were to look at the areas where the biggest supposed scams took place during the UPA's time, it was primarily in the area of the allocation of resources, coal, spectrum, and so on. Now, can a new government wave a magic wand to solve the manner in which these resources are allotted, or is it a much more complex beast that you're tackling with here?
I think at one level, can India go for green growth? Yes. The places where we have had problems is where we have not known how to price it. In telecom, we went in for an auction process. We need to strengthen the regulatory process. Every country in the world struggles with pricing of natural resources. So two things. One, bring in a transparent price mechanism. Second, get the regulatory structure in place so that people can't game the system. And until both these things are articulated, which I don't think the BJP or the Congress has done, you're not going to have a solution to the corruption problem.
Okay, let's get a quick response from Kirit Somaya to that. Are you prepared to do that, Kirit Somaya? Bring in transparent mechanisms to ensure the allotment of these natural resources. Remember, there's also the gas pricing controversy, which is also looming, and which is again going to be one of the big issues that you will have to face when you come into government.
As I told you, there is a totally openness, transparency, competitive bidding, no favoritism. Along with that, there won't be any tax terrorism. Don't try to forget what this government Chidambaram tried to create, retrospective taxes. And when he knows that retrospective taxes is not going to stand in the code, in spite of that, that is nothing but tax terrorism. Simultaneously, what we are trying to change.
No, but on the allotment, I am on the allotment of resources, because one thing, Chandan Mitra, which the government pointed out was when you were...
I told you...
Yes. No, one thing I want to say. One thing.
Specifically, that will be competitive bidding.
Okay, I'll tell you why.
Competitive bidding in natural resources.
Chandan, the point that the government tried to make in its defense, when the Colgate scam was brought up, is that when they consulted with state governments to move to a system of auction of competitive bidding, virtually all state governments, including of the BJP, opposed it and say we would like to stick to the system where it is largely done through discretion. Is that going to change? Is that going to change?
I am giving you the reply.
Okay,
this is a half truth.
One at a time. Chandan Mitra, yes. Yes, go ahead.
Supreme Court suggested that you must always auction natural resources. If you have to exploit natural resources, auction them. Now, Manmohan Singh, when he became Prime Minister second time, he said, yes, of course, we'll do so. Started the process of consultation. All states are very zealous when it comes to guarding their natural resources, because they genuinely feel that the centre will take away everything. And they have, as it is, so little avenues for raising money for the state's development that they will zealously guard their position. Now, you have to work out and evolve a consensus in this. There has to be an effort in this for this, which the government did not make at all. Okay. Yes, BJP government also opposed, because they were afraid that centre will take away everything, and so did the Congress government.
Okay.
Now you have to come up with a formula which persuades this, and then there is no alternative to auctioning of resources.
All right,
no alternative.
That's That's a fair enough point. We'll have to take a short.
No.
We'll have to take a very short break here. Abhishek Singhvi, I know you want to come in.
There are lots of problems.
I will come to you, Abhishek, to respond to this after a very short break, where we will also ask the representatives of the new regime how they intend to create millions of jobs. That's in a moment from now. Welcome back. Can the NDA sarkaar try and repair what they claim is the legacy of a damaged economy left by the UPA? Abhishek Singhvi, I know you wanted to respond to some of the points being made earlier by Chandan Mitra, but one of the things which they have said repeatedly, and this is something that even the industry, the corporate community have held against you, is policy paralysis, that you have sat on crores and crores of projects which have not been cleared. 7 lakh crores of projects have been held up. This was a figure I was told of 2013, and this is the backlog now which the new government will have to clear. Abhishek Singhvi.
I'll come to this straight away, but I must complete what I was saying. You've asked very specific questions in a constructive manner about subsidy, about inflation, about fiscal deficit. I don't think you've received specific answers. Now you put a very clear question on auction. The fact should be clarified. The telecom judgment has come in 2012 February, which said auction should be the norm. But subsequently, a larger bench of the Supreme Court sat and said that for all resources other than telecom, auction need not be an invariable rule. It will depend on the context. So axiomatically, auction is not the only rule. Secondly, the first person to initiate auction in the mining area was the UPA government. But as you pointed out, it received thick opposition, mostly from BJP states. And in fact, it requires a change in what is known as the MMRD, the mining regulatory law. Now, I have seen nothing during our tenure when the BJP initiated any proposal to amend the mining law. In fact, that proposal came from the UPA government.
Okay,
and
Chandan
was not
Mitra,
pushed through because of lack of consensus.
Okay,
so these are generalities being told to you, but actually the conduct in the previous government is totally the reverse. And as far as your question about policy paralysis is concerned,
yes,
there was a period, especially between 2010 end and 2011, when because of these various allegations and so-called scams, there was a delay.
No,
but subsequently, if you remember, from 2012 onwards, from 2012-13 onwards, specifically, a infrastructure committee was set up at the cabinet level, a single window clearance, and a large chunk of the 7 lakh crore figure you have mentioned has been cleared.
Okay,
in perhaps the last year and a half of the UPA government.
That was set up. Let's bring in others here as well. Perhaps that was still in theory, and perhaps that was too late, because Chandan Mitra, one of the log jams in the previous government was between the environmental ministry and between the mining and the other ministries, which felt that there was clearances were simply held up. Now, will you overcome that, but also at the same time, won't there be concerns about the risk to the environment? How will you try and balance out both these concerns?
Vasu, I am not trying to score a debating point here, but the fact is the Congress government revelled in delaying and complicating clearances. There was no reason why decisions could not be taken much faster about these things, but they just did not take decisions. No, people say that it was delayed only to extract something from the industrialists.
Okay, but now tell us about how you will ensure that these clearances are given, but without necessarily imperiling in any way the environment, as well as, of course, communities that live particularly nearing these mining areas. So you've got those concerns as well. How will you try and strike that balance?
Look, our Prime Minister designate, Narendra Modi ji, has already made it clear that we will go ahead and make allotments without endangering the environment. And I think this is what has been done in many BJP ruled states will be followed. There will be clear-cut rules, and there will be transparency, and there will be no favoritism or a kind of special interventions by ministers.
Okay,
no distortions. Once you do that, I don't think there's an issue there.
let's just get Aruna Roy to respond to that. Aruna?
I have something to say.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I have something to say to all governments, and it doesn't relate only to the Modi government, but the Modi government will also have to take it very seriously, and that is that there is often a conflict between the sanctioning of these projects and the complete disregard both to environment and to people who stay there. And I think this is a very contentious issue, it's a very conflict-ridden issue, and the maturity of the coming government will be displayed in how best it handles it. I think these platitudes don't take us anywhere. The real reason why people like us look at these projects with deep concern is A, the development which is being touted is not clear to us. We don't know what development it is talking about. It's got to really be, we people have to understand what this development will do for us. Will it mean that there will be these new mega projects and we will be uprooted? Does it mean that displacement will also mean the damage to natural resources, to forests, to rivers? These are all very fundamental questions today in the world because of climate change. It's not just India, it impacts the world today.
No, I think that's a legitimate concern, but Chandan Mitra did say that there will be an attempt to strike a balance. I'm afraid we'll have to take another short break. When we come back, the last big challenge before the Modi sarkar, that's after the break. Welcome back. Of the last of the challenges that we're framing today, Chandan Mitra, and this is not an economic challenge, but this is more on the lines of a political challenge on the realm of Raj Dharm, really, which is to do with the fact that in your otherwise absolutely outstanding landslide victory, if there was just one question mark, which is about the nature of the representation of this team of BJP MPs who are in Parliament, and are they truly reflective of the diverse nature of this country. I'm talking about the absence of any Muslim representation, which has also raised questions about whether this government will try and reach out to the minorities and assuage any concerns, if at all they do have them. Now, beyond just generic statements that have been made about being a government for all, that koi paraya nahi hoga, as Narendra Modi said in Vadodara, are there any concrete steps that you think you should take once you come into power to reach out, particularly to the minorities?
Yes, the concrete step will be an end to appeasement and vote bank politics, and actually do something concrete for the minority communities, which are undoubtedly, economically, particularly the Muslim community, is genuinely underprivileged. And I think Gujarat has shown the way. If you look at the Sarkaar committee report, you will see how steps have been taken by the Gujarat government to provide an inclusive opportunity-based system where people have equal opportunities, good schools, good educational opportunities,
so you're
government
saying
jobs, without going into this reservation and stop the ghettoization. This is I think the priority. We have to be an inclusive government and actually do it in action, not like the Congress, which only talks and does nothing.
Abhishek Singhvi, very quick response from you. We're really short on time. Go ahead.
Well, this is a very important part of good governance. It is to a large extent mixed with both reality and perception. The perception is clear. The BJP is not bothered about the minority vote. In fact, it wants a polarization, and on the basis of that polarization, it thinks it has enough numbers. Now, that perception, I am very happy if they're able to prove
Muslim
it to be
MPs
wrong.
into Parliament.
Very happy to be wrong.
All this inclusive.
Yes, because we did not, because we got a total of only 49. But out of your 337, please tell us how many Muslims you have in the 282 of BJP.
This is
nil, zero. So therefore, let's not
very quickly, Abhishek, if you can conclude. Yes.
But let me say one last thing. I said I'll be the happiest if this perception changes, because that's important for a diverse, pluralistic country like India. But the reality, Mr. Chandan Mitra made the mistake of referring to the Sarkaar committee report. The reality is what? I'll give you one striking example and take 30 seconds. It's striking. The Sarkaar committee report said scholarships for minority
students. We only have 10 seconds.
Central government scheme was started in Gujarat. The Gujarat government, instead of implementing it in Gujarat, challenged it in the High Court of Gujarat, in its own High Court. Lost.
Anyway, I
challenged in the Supreme Court.
Read the report.
And have not
read
implemented
the report. See the employment opportunities.
All right, I think
employment opportunities for minorities in Gujarat.
All right, I think at least.
Vasu,
there is a vision that has been outlined by Chandan Mitra, by the BJP. I'm so sorry, Aruna, and the rest of you, we're completely out of time. But we seem to have at least got into a debate on the specifics.
Listen,
whether or not that addresses these questions remains to be seen.
It's not a question of a debate, you have to.
But we'll have to leave it there. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thanks very much indeed. Goodbye. Good night.